Dangerous major Hurricane Ian is battering Key West, Florida, on track for Southwest Florida. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on this powerful Category 3 hurricane. It looks a little more ragged than it did earlier on Tuesday night, but it underwent an eye wall replacement cycle. I'll show you what that is in just a second. But the Air Force recon flying out there and all the aircraft doing a great job, they're showing that this is a very powerful hurricane, and it may strengthen even further. Here's the latest as of 11 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center. Hurricane Ian was at 24.9 north, 82.9 west, winds of 120 miles per hour, so it's a solid Category 3 hurricane, and the pressure's been about 952 millibars. It is up a little bit. It did get all the way down to 947. By comparison, Charlie was 941 when it came into Punta Gorda 18 years ago. It's moving north-northeast at 10, and this general motion or a northeast motion should continue until landfall sometime Wednesday, maybe Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. And the Hurricane Center's thinking that it's going to be about 130, 135 miles an hour. It's going to become a Category 4, they're thinking, and that is very devastating. Hurricane warnings are out, obviously. I'm not going to go over all the watches and warnings. That goes without saying. We have evacuation orders going on, people evacuating. Very, very serious hurricane. After it moves inland, it'll weaken very quickly to a tropical storm on Thursday, but it's forecast to reemerge and then Friday make landfall in Georgia or South Carolina. Georgia, you don't get hit very often because you're such a narrow area here of the coast, but you have been hit before, and it looks like you might have to deal with whatever's left of Ian by that point in time. The computer models seem to be in good agreement somewhere here in the vicinity of Charlotte Harbor, near Venice and down towards Sanibel Island, Captiva, this area for landfall, and then afterwards taking it offshore again towards Georgia and South Carolina. Now, it won't be a Category 4 hurricane up there, but it could still be a nasty storm, no doubt. Here's the radar imagery, and this is from the Mark Niesenbaum radar website, a great website, been using it for years. Watch what happens to the eye. Here it is, very small. Watch now over the last few hours as that new eye has taken shape. Look at how much larger it has gotten, and that wind field has now expanded, and that is very bad news because even though the hurricane kind of sputtered a little bit, it's still a Category 3, so it's just as strong as it was, but now the wind field is even larger. The aircraft are recording winds of hurricane force extending out all the way close to the southwest coast here in areas of Marco Island and Goodland. You guys might get into hurricane force really within hours if this keeps up. Here's a better look at it from the Twitter of Andy Hazelton, and Andy Hazelton works for the University of Miami and made a good point here. The Corps already has Category 4 winds at flight level, which means that the new eye wall has started to at least have the same intensity or strengthen. But now look at how far out these hurricane winds are being measured from the northeast part of the eye, and that's closing in now on areas there of southwest Florida. So we've already had a wind gust in Key West to 80 miles per hour. They're getting hammered with flooding rains. Dr. Jeff Masters from Weather Underground, great guy, came on our network back when we did online audio streaming in the 2000s. He tweeted out this major flooding in Key West. Look at this major flood event. And this is the third highest water level on record behind Wilma in 2005 and Irma 5 years ago. Hurricane Irma 2017, it was September 5 years ago, this September, that Irma hit as a Category 3 near Naples with the same intensity Ian is now. Ian is expected to become a Category 4 hurricane. There's the satellite, and obviously that eye did fizzle out there, and it has been undergoing wind shear in response to that trophiness, and you can see that even better on this shear map. It's definitely getting undercut. But the Hurricane Center thinks, and this is not a good thing, that because Ian is such a big, bad monster, that it's going to be able to fend off the wind shear better, and because the waters are so hot here off the southwest coast of Florida, and the fact that it's got a new, bigger, fatter eye, it should be able to strengthen a little bit before making landfall tomorrow. And again, if it doesn't become a Category 4, there's not a whole lot of difference. There's the Saffir-Simpson wind scale. Right now it's 120 miles an hour, so it's obviously an extensive to devastating hurricane. It's forecast to be a Category 4, which is just devastating, just as bad. If it were to somehow weaken down here, we'd talk about things being a bit better. But the fact that it's going to be a solid major hurricane, it looks like at landfall, is very bad news. Hurricane Irma was 120 at landfall near Naples. Hurricane Charlie was 150 at landfall near Punta Gorda. It looks like Hurricane Ian should be somewhere between those two. So if you're between Irma and Charlie, that's a bad thing because those are historic hurricanes. Rainfall is going to be a huge threat with this storm. Look at this 7-day outlook here from the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center pouring across Florida. There are people who think, oh, this isn't going to be that bad, and we've been through hurricanes before, or you think you're inland. Let me tell you, we could have devastating flooding inland, to say nothing about the severe weather, the tornadoes. We have a tornado watch. We have already had some bad tornadoes in Florida tonight. Reports that Delray Beach had a pretty nasty tornado damage. This is all in association around the hurricane. People always forget that with a landfalling tropical cyclone, you have tornadoes just like any other severe weather event. Here's the current radar, and again, we've had tornado warnings popping on and off like popcorn all night long around the Florida coastline, even into southeast Florida. And look at that new eye. I'm impressed. I've seen hurricanes take days to get rid of their little eye before the new one takes over, and Hurricane Ian did it in just a few hours, and it is over the Dry Tortugas right now, which is the national park there. No habitation, but still technically a piece of Florida, and the eye is over it right now. There's Key West getting hammered. You guys have been slammed with those wind gusts and very high water rises. You've seen videos on Twitter. I've seen videos on Twitter of flooding. The Keys are getting hit really bad here, and I think a lot of people might be caught off guard. I don't want another Charlie situation where people focus only on the center, but the bad news is that this storm is about 7 or 8 times the size of Hurricane Charlie. I know that's hard to imagine, but spatially, it's much larger than Charlie, and that makes for much worse storm surge. If it continues on that track that the Hurricane Center's thinking, we'll likely have landfall probably in the area of Captiva Island. But again, Sanibel down here, you guys are also at risk. Sanibel, you have a full-scale evacuation going on because of the storm surge threat. Guys, that is the main threat with this hurricane. 8 to 12 feet for areas here of Charlotte Harbor, all the way from Longboat Key, all the way down to Sanibel Island. You guys are at risk for 10 feet of water or more. And then even further south, Marco Island, Naples, Bonita Beach, you guys could be seeing 6 to 10 feet of water rises. And right now in the Keys, you're already getting hit with it. So further up the coast, if you're on where the winds are offshore, you could actually have a reverse surge. But where those winds are onshore, it is going to be very, very devastating. So here are the key messages from the National Hurricane Center as of 11 p.m. Life-threatening storm surge expected across the Florida West Coast. Storm surge warnings in effect. The highest risk is from Naples to Sarasota. So that includes areas like Sanibel Island, Captiva Island, Port Charlotte, all of you guys. Residents in those areas should listen to any advice given by local officials and follow the evacuation orders. You're running out of time there in areas like Sanibel to get out because the weather is going to go downhill very quickly. Hurricane force winds expected starting tomorrow morning with tropical storm conditions overnight, and devastating wind damage, a Category 4 hurricane, is expected near the core of Ian. Residents should rush all preparations to completion. Heavy rainfall is going to spread across Florida, and then catastrophic flooding is possible. Central Florida, North Florida, Southeast Georgia, South Carolina. You guys could have major river flooding as Ian pulls up to the north. Again, this is a very, very serious hurricane. Looking at that satellite imagery, oof, I do not like the looks of that. This thing looks like it is a monster in the making right there. And again, I am not liking that convection building right around the center of circulation, showing that it has a new eye and it is on its way to intensifying more. Even if it doesn't strengthen, it's already a Category 3, and we are seeing impacts along the southwest Florida coastline. I'm Mike Naso with continuing coverage here on our YouTube channel of Hurricane Ian, a very dangerous Category 3 major hurricane taking aim at southwest Florida. If you are in Cape Coral, Sanibel, Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, Naples, Marco, Sarasota, Bradenton, batten down the hatches. Key West, you're already getting slammed. I'll be back with continuing coverage. Stay tuned.